Hey there, everybody. My name's Israel Matson. I'm hosting this episode of the Black Lab Apps podcast together with Bill Arpin and Malachi Matson. I decided to put this podcast together to kind of introduce you guys more to the Black Lab Apps team and kind of the philosophy behind the design and the functions that you'll utilize using this product. I thought it might be interesting for you guys to get to know both Malachi and Bill and any other team members that come in on this episode, as it'll help you to understand and use your console to its maximum capabilities. So joining me today is Bill Arpin. Bill, it's great to have you on the Black Lab Apps podcast.
Hey, thanks, Israel. Nice to be here.
And Malachi Matson. Malachi, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Glad to talk about what we're passionate about.
So I guess the best way to start this then is to just go all the way back to the beginning. Let's dial this thing back. Let's get to understand why the console. What led to Black Labs deciding to get into this market where there would be seemingly, we all have these different brands or companies that seemingly fill these types of roles. So what was the need that you guys saw, and how did that come about?
Yeah, I guess I'll take it from here and just Malachi jump in when you see a different angle on things than I did. But basically what happened was I would sat in on a lot of managers meetings, my background being in the concrete industry. And with our current company, one of the issues that we had was we had 200 and some odd guys out in the field every day placing concrete. And one of the issues was we really had a hard time wrapping our arms around whether or not we were winning on a project today. We always had to wait for information to come in, for our accountants to tally up all the man hours and all the material reports to come in to really know if our jobs were in trouble. And come to think of it, all throughout my career growing up, again in the industry, one of the issues was we didn't really ever have a handle on that stuff. And whether I worked for a crew as a laborer or a foreman or something like that, we would come in and day out, and we would just do our job, never really knowing if we're winning. And our owners really never knew if we won until the very end of the job. And so that's when we knew we had an opportunity, because again, working for this company, we had tried a whole bunch of programs and softwares to try to get that information back from the field, but it was so hard. It was so hard to get the guys to fill that out. It was so hard to rely on it. And it really just turned into this big garbage mess that people were just fed up with. And so we said, hey, there's an opportunity here. If we can get and create a program that was field first, truly field first, in such a way that the guys out in the field can use it and they value it and they provide the information in, we knew that we could get the best results in the back office and truly know if our projects are in trouble.
Yeah, so I want to kind of jump in on that a little more. So you've already used this word winning a few times. Can you kind of clarify, what do you mean by winning? I know that's a big part of this console philosophy and the field first philosophy. So can you just define winning as it relates to construction or any type of business that console would fit into?
Yeah, so ultimately is what you just did, the sweat of your brow, waking up in the morning, putting in the hours, the shift out in the field. Was it worthwhile? In the end, did it make a profit for your employer, for your team, for your company? And do you have some revenue there that will meet payroll and then allow your company to be a sustainable organization? So winning is doing a job, a profitable job.
Totally. Yeah. And so I guess that gives me a good opportunity to segue into your role there, Malachi. So I think people understanding why you guys, the challenges that led to you guys building this is going to really help people understand the product and maximize its benefits and things that it offers. So going into this, what were the main key challenges you guys wanted to tackle with your console software?
So let me take a step back a little bit and talk about the history. In some ways, the opportunity fell into our laps because one of those challenges we were focused on were the quality control of floor flatness. So in the concrete industry, for especially industrial floors where you have forklifts moving at high rates of speed, or floors that are going to receive a tiling or floor covering, there's a spec on these floors for how flat and level they need to be. And we myself and my brother were engineers, and we had developed a product called the Axiom Floor Profiler along this vein of focusing on how contractors can monitor their own floor quality and establish quality control. And Console was kind of the child of a dashboarding system we had built for concrete contractors to basically track day in and day out the quality of their floors. Well, this evolved into what is now Console, because while we were tracking those floor flatness quality numbers, we could also, we realized, use a simple input for work performed. For example, how many square feet were placed that day. And so it established a system where foremen could submit a job report for the day. And these daily job reports could incorporate the amount of work performed, the amount of man hours, and then it evolved into even individual employees, how many hours each employee worked. And so you have this performance metric that you can now look at and see at a glance, did the crew perform the amount of work expected of them for the day in the amount of hours expected from them, alongside the quality of their work, which was coming from this floor profiling device which we had developed.
In conversation earlier today, we were discussing how there was a philosophy that you guys wanted to build on, was that a lot of these other competitors were looking to monitor and track and hold accountable their guys in a way that it's almost like Big Brother watching over you, and almost aggravates the guys out in the field that they have to deal with this. Whereas the philosophy you guys wanted to build was, hey, this is a system to help us all win. Bill, can you kind of go into that a little more?
Yeah, I can definitely give you that from firsthand experience. One of the things, again, coming from the concrete side of things and the contractor side of things, working with employees and being out there myself, one of the things was with all these new apps that are coming out, a lot of them have facial recognition, geofencing, all these things that are kind of designed and queued up so that you're going to try to catch people stealing from you. And yes, that does occur, but there's a bigger problem. It's a root problem. Is why are people stealing from you? And people.
It's a cultural thing.
Yeah, it becomes a cultural thing. You're absolutely right, Malachi.
And by stealing, I mean, what are you talking about stealing?
By stealing, you'd have certain people basically clocking in way earlier than they should be, or clocking in while they were off the job and everything like that. All these things to just kind of steal
basically
hours or pad hours.
Reporting hours that they didn't work.
Yeah. So, for a while there, we would meet with people and say, hey, we're building this console app and we're doing this with timekeeping. They say, well, that's great, but do you have all these features? And then one day it kind of hit us like a ton of bricks. It's like, whoa, wait a minute here. That's a cultural thing. Why are people stealing from you? Well, because they're not really dialed into what you're supposed to, as far as the winning part of things. They're not really made a part of this whole business process. And then the other part of it is that they're constantly being monitored by someone in the office, and it developed this kind of toxic environment where we'd have admin people calling people out in the field saying, hey, we're watching you. Why'd you clock in over here and do all this and that? Well, when we said, wait a second here, what if we just give the guys out in the field a goal? What if we really strive to be an employer of choice and just say, hey, you know what, Mr. Foreman, I know you're running a crew and I know you're working really hard. You've been working for us for 25 years. And I know, guess what, if you clock in at 8:05 in the morning and then you clock out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, those 5 minutes, basically, I don't really care because I know you're going to take those 5 minutes later on phone calls later. But really, what I want to do is I want to give you a goal and I want to give your crew a goal. Can you hit it? And that changes the psyche of everybody on that job. You've moved away from, are you stealing from me, to like, hey, let's see if we can hit this goal. Matter of fact, Mr. Foreman, if you clock in over at Starbucks down the road and you decided that you think it was valuable to take your entire crew there and treat them to breakfast or something like that, and yet you still hit our man-hour goals on that job, I actually want more of you. That's the bottom line. I want more of you because you figured out a way to manage your crew and to keep them happy. And I think that goes a long way towards helping a company who really bites off on this philosophy into being an employer of choice, which is so hard right now in the construction industry. We're losing employees like crazy to other markets.
It's a little bit of it's a little bit of the whole mantra, tripping over dollars, chasing dimes kind of thing, where you're sold on a timekeeping app or a system for timekeeping that will save you, 5-10 minutes of someone's time every, as a employer on pay. When it comes to payroll, you might save 1 or 2% on payroll, and it's shown that that 1% adds up to $10,000 a year. But what's ultimately sacrificed is a company culture where the focus is shifted into more of that kind of Gestapo feeling oversight, and instead of a positive environment where you're all focused on a common goal of profitability.
Right, and so Bill kind of pointed out that the industry overall is encountering this challenge of a labor shortage, especially amongst the younger generations, especially as our rates of college-educated people continue to rise and rise and rise. For some reason, getting a college degree seems to tell a lot of these young men and women that a trade in the construction is some reason going to be beneath you, or you can do an easier trade and make just as much or more money. So then you end up with a lot of these young guys showing up and working, and that Gestapo environment is a major turnoff. And in their mind, it's just as easy to go and stock shelves or something and basically make the same.
Absolutely.
And so you have these, you have this window, this first impression with these people, where you can either turn them off by saying, all right, we automatically don't trust you, so we want you to photograph yourself when you show up on the job and clock in and all that stuff. Or you bring them in and say, look, you have the chance to make a difference in this company and be a part of a team and something bigger. And that's kind of what I see the consul as having that role. It can be more of a motivation, not just obligation.
Yeah, Israel, you're really hitting on that nerve, and that's the big thing. Again, if I'm a young guy looking to go work for an employer in the construction industry, and I work for a company, I got two choices. I can work for a company that's sitting there saying, I'm watching every move that you make, you steal 5 minutes, I know, and I'm coming down on you. Or you have the option to work for a construction company who says, you know what, I'm going to put you on this team, and you're going to have a chance to work alongside us. And as a team, if we hit this goal, we're going to get a bonus. And by the way, we're going to make a lot of money. And that changes everything, because now all of a sudden, when you get put on that team, the foreman and everybody around you becomes very invested in helping you grow, because you're going to help that team get better and better. And if your employer is incentivizing you to hit those numbers, you are going to turn into this elite little group that just kicks butt on job day after day. And that really, really, you want to talk about winning and feeling good at the end of the day, that feels great. And that's a sense of accomplishment. And I think it's just getting lost on more and more job sites across America, and we're losing so many people because of that.
Yeah, and walk a mile in their shoes. If you work construction, put yourself back into those days when you were in the trenches. If you're now, in administrative roles in the office, it's easy to forget and distance yourselves. But the reality is, most missed clock outs or late clock outs or missed clock ins are a result of really busy times. So you're working guys hard. They're out there working literally by the sweat of their brow, putting in long hours, long days. They just get back to the hotel. They forgot to clock out. Then they get a call later on from someone in the office reaming them out. Hey, why are you stealing hours? This guy just put in an honest day's work for you. Inadvertently clocked out at the wrong time, and you're going to come down on them for something that might cost you $15, $10, $20, whatever it is. It's just the wrong approach.
So all types of construction companies and companies of all sorts have kind of been on this trend that we've kind of been discussing now for many years. So basically what you guys are proposing is this radical fundamental shift. Now, that's fine and good, but have you seen the type of results that we're talking about now in the early signups that have been with you the longest, or even some of the later ones? Have you seen this type of stuff starting to realize itself, or is it merely theory?
Yeah, no, we've seen results right away, and that's the way console again is designed to be rolled out. Is just in baby steps. You're not drinking from the fire hose with it. The first thing is on the operations side of things, right? You put everybody on the schedule. You send out a text, tell them where they need to be going and what they need to be doing, and just getting everybody on the same page in the morning is huge. And that's the first result that you have is everyone all of a sudden is clued in what they're doing tomorrow.
Yeah, it's an inclusive environment where you feel part of the team just because someone has taken the time to inform you. You know, that's something we can take for granted. But a lot of times, you know, especially newer guys on the crew, they're not told where they're going or what to expect, and they're showing up, and we expect them to be clued in when it's our job to clue them in, and we haven't done so.
Now, another concept that has been discussed around here frequently is that console has everything you need and nothing that you don't. That's another radical shift from, let's say, the competitors that are out there who want to just compete with each other to offer the most features. Can you kind of dive into that a little more and why that's so important for especially small to mid-sized contractors? Yeah,
so keep it simple is that's you'll get that as feedback and requests when you go and if you talk to anybody in the field, especially in construction, and you ask what's something important that you value in an app or technology. Keep it simple. You have to remember that these aren't people that are sitting at a desk all day, or many of them are not as familiar with technology as many other industries. You know, they're less technologically inclined, and many of them are technologically adverse to tech. You know, they don't like, you know, they shy away from using technology and avoid it if possible. So keeping it simple and displaying things visually in a way that they will interpret, that many other apps, what might seem intuitive, is not the case in the construction industry, because many of these guys aren't familiar with a lot of the symbols that are used in technology. And so what you might expect for a certain button behavior, someone might not interpret that in the way that you would think in this industry. So
yeah, and then building on that too, Malachi, I remember when we're looking at these things and sitting in again these meetings, and again being on the management side, on the construction side, you'd have these app companies coming in, and what they're really doing is they're selling to the management, the decision makers, quote unquote, and they would sell this whole feature suite of, we do this reporting, we do this, we do all these things. Well, what they're not saying is what's required of your field personnel to actually fill out that information, and what most people fail to realize is just how much that work that actually is to deploy an app like that out to the field, have your field personnel actually intuitively take that app, fill out all the information that you need correctly, and then have it come into the back office. And the problem is that a lot of these people in the office also have a lot of authority, and what they can do is they kind of ram it down everyone's throat, and it just becomes this weird.
Basically, you expect all of your field personnel to perform the jobs of your accountants, you know, when that's not their skill set.
Yeah.
It looks good on paper, and from the office and the back office perspective, you know, it's going to save, you know, when we do payroll, it's going to save us so much time because, you know, the guys are going to have put in all this information. But you have to be very careful with that, because every point of input is also a risk of failure at that point.
Yeah, so when we worked to put this stuff together, we really sat down. Again, this has been a long way around to answer your question, Israel, but when we really sat down to pull this information together, we said, what is the bare minimum that we can ask the people out in the field to give us, and yet still let us know from the office side of things when a job is in trouble? We want our operations people to know right away when a job's in trouble. We don't want our accountants to process this, create this report, and generate this spreadsheet or whatever. We want our operations people to know right away when a job's in trouble.
And I think that's just a strong testament to what you describe as the field first approach or mentality that console endorses. And that actually is a great transition then into, let's say you have a new client, or someone's listening to this episode and they have a small, medium size company or large, what are the first steps then to getting on the console program, and can you kind of lead us through this whole process?
Yeah, sure, Israel. I've helped a lot of companies get this thing up and running. And really all I say is, hey, listen, okay, if you came here, and a lot of companies say, hey, I just need help scheduling first. I just want to let my guys know where they're going day in and day out. No problem. Console is designed to set up first by sending out the schedule.
Yeah, if you're using a whiteboard, if you're using Excel or spreadsheets for planning your schedule out, this is a level above. Console is an upgrade from your whiteboard, while maintaining that simplicity.
Absolutely. And that's where we start, right? That's where we start, is right there with that. And I say, hey, put all your guys on the calendar, send, and and Console sends out a text letting them know what they need to be doing and where they need to be going. Done. All those people in the field, they don't even need the app to use it. They're getting these texts.
That's powerful.
Yep. And they're getting exposure to our app just in a tiny little baby bite. And then the next thing we say is, hey, listen, why don't you, when you set up a job, go ahead in there, put in everything that your foreman needs for that job, whether it be links for the plans, photos, notes, or anything like that. Put it under the job that they're going to.
Yeah, what he means by putting it under the job is under the job tracking feature, there's a message board where there's a chronological news feed of everything you've uploaded to that job, kind of like a file folder containing all the contents of anything you've documented related to that project.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Malachi, for sure. Because the big part is, as a foreman, again, I'm going back to my days, you had so many other places that you had to look, and you had to pull in this material and everything like that. Well, what Console we try to do is put it all in one spot. So now I'm the foreman, and now I'm going to get a text that has a link to the app. We're not even sending you the Google Play Store or any of that stuff. You can put that app right on your phone, right from that link, and then you just pin in, and you have everything that you need for the job that you're going to. So that's the second phase.
And the nice thing is that link is for your company alone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you can also use that same link on any device. So if you got an Apple phone, you decide to switch over to Android, or vice versa, that same link is going to get you access to the same app, and you can clock in, do your time, put in information into the job, all using that same company link.
Yeah. Then the next step as a foreman is basically now I can say, hey, why don't we use this job message board a little bit more? And let's go ahead and start taking photos and notes of everything that's going on out on that job. Because that foreman can now upload through that same portal. He can upload all the photos and notes of everything that he's doing out there. And so every time that you, on the admin side, just look at that job, you can see progress. You can see photos and notes and anything that's going on. You never know. Someday he could have snapped a photo of something that he installed that your client is suddenly saying you didn't do, and you have actual documentation, time and date stamped in there. So we're slowly starting to get this out where now all of a sudden, wow, okay, it's already providing value that's above and beyond the price of what Console costs. But now let's go one step further. Let's go ahead and put tasks in there, and let's put a material that the amount of material I want you to install. And then I also want to put the amount of man hours that I think you can do it in. So you see what you've done now is now you've introduced the idea of setting goals. So I said, hey, this is how much I want you to install. This is how long I want you to take. And then it spits out a little thing, a little icon off to the side that says how much material per man hour you're supposed to put in. So what you've done is just given that foreman and the crew a goal to hit.
Yeah, and it's in the form of like just a simple checklist. You got a series of tasks, and as you check off those tasks, they're out of your view to reduce a complication for the guy using it.
Yep. So the next thing you do is you just turn on timekeeping. And whether it be just you can let employees fill out their own time, and a foreman can also look at the time that they put in and help you reconcile that, which is another big thing for the admin people, is having foremen or superintendents filling out or approving time that is coming in from the field, and they're doing that automatically. And then also too is when they submit their time, all they're going to say is, hey, how much did you install and how many man hours did you have? And it's done. You know that the moment that time comes in, if your job's in trouble, there's a little icon that'll show up on the calendar face where your operations people can see right there. There's a red flag next to the job, or you can log in the app as an owner and it has a list of all your active jobs. You got a red flag next to that job, that means you need to look at it. And if you can get that far with Console, you've gotten so much value. And And then the last part of it is, once you have all that stuff coming in, we also have a whole other part called tracking in console. And so you can go in there and you can see which crews are better at which tasks, who's faster at doing this or that. When you start getting that information in it from an estimation standpoint,
you can put your cost codes on those tasks and be able to see what your average man hour is for a certain cost code.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which is incredibly powerful for estimating. And then on top of that, you have greatly reduced the amount of garbage in and garbage out type scenario, so that those estimates are pretty good when this thing comes in, because it's coming from the field. It's tied to when they submit their time, which is the best time that you can ask an employee to fill out any kind of extra information.
And especially if you've put goals incentivized based off of goals or achieving goals, the quality of that data is going to be solid, because it's in their best interest not to over-report, or at the end of the day, it's going to shake out that this project, hit these goals or not.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you've got scheduling, you've got job tracking, you've got timekeeping, and it's all working together to give you that information. Is my job in trouble? And then furthermore, from a standpoint from the employee's perspective, you're really showing them what winning is for every job that they do. And then when that employee comes into your office, you can go in a console and see the crew that they're on, and you don't even they don't have to ask you for a raise. You know that this guy is worth keeping around.
You know their value.
Yeah, you see their value.
And that's again, in keeping with the field first, is as a user of the app, again, I'm expected to report my time to jobs and tasks. Well, I understand that this is going to be documented, especially in regards to productivity. Okay. And when it comes time for an employee review, I know that I can point to data and say, hey, look, I am this level of a performer because I can do things, at this certain rate, or my team or my crew has consistently outperformed the goals. And, so that's where it is from, again, still from a field first perspective, where, I report my time, I can see my time, how much that's been documented for the week, the hours are accurate. It's a fair deal. I'm not worried about getting shorted an hour or two by my employer, or, someone forgot or missed my hours for the week.
Right. And I think that's really important. That last note right there is that it's almost a way to hold each other accountable, employer and employee, and in doing so kind of just build on that camaraderie and teamsmanship.
Absolutely. A common goal.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of a story. Is one of the companies that had just started using this, they had an estimator, and what happened was they set a job up and they put the material installed and the goal, and then the crew had put their time in and obviously put in their material installed. And then all of a sudden there happened to be a red flag on that job. They weren't hitting the pace. But the reality is that the operations people knew that these guys were literally killing themselves out there.
They were doing everything they could do to try to hit the pace that was expected of them by their management.
Yep, exactly. And then what happened was all of a sudden the estimator says, "Ooh, I hope this doesn't come back on me because, I missed this one." Well, truthfully, you know what? You did miss. There was something you missed in there. And so what happens, it ties your operations people to your estimators, to the guys out in the field, and it creates this accountability thing that, as far as we're aware, there's no other program out there that does this.
Right. So instead of this blame game, we can all look together at, all right, what happened in this situation? In the cases where you did fall short of your goals, okay, why? We need to learn from this, not to throw somebody under the bus. Again, this isn't the Gestapo environment anymore. This is, how can we collectively all achieve the goal of winning, i.e. being a productive, profitable organization? And now, instead of finger pointing, everyone can focus on what can I do next time to either have a better estimate, or in the field, how can I do something that will be more productive throughout the day, or as a foreman, how can I stay more organized?
So, Bill, what do you say to a company who wants to get on board with console, but just isn't quite sure if they're ready yet to make that leap?
Yeah, you know what? The making that leap it's always worrisome. It's always scary to take this leap and say, "Hey,
change is hard."
yeah, it's a real big thing." And the hardest part is just committing to the philosophy. The philosophy is, I want to make sure that my employees are happy. I want to make sure that my customers are happy. And, the other thing we say around here is we also want to have a good bottom line. In order to have all those three put together, you need to just commit to the philosophy. And if you do that, it's been really neat to see the impact it's had on large companies, but it's also been really neat to see the impact on the smaller companies that we're bringing in, because they're recognizing that, in order to grow, I want to have a strong foundation. And in order to have that foundation, we need to have these three things in place. If my employees aren't happy, if my customers aren't happy, and we're not profitable, we're gone next year.
Yeah, it's just as effective at the smaller company level. I mentioned earlier, you got 4 guys. You got to be telling them where to go and when to be there. Why not just put that into a system and get into a system and use this system that's going to grow and be there for you as you grow. And reality is it provides value at that level as well. There's no trade-off as far as you're doing something anyways, whether it's informally, you're calling your guys up. Why not do it in a way that's going to be sustainable long-term and really something that you can leverage as you grow?
And two, the bigger you get, the harder it is to get your arms around bigger problems.
And the harder it is to change.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why, as you discussed earlier, it's so crucial, the system basically that has been developed here of, weaning people into console. And so console is just amazingly simple, which is just the beauty of it. But even so, you guys understand that companies need to adopt it piecemeal. I mean, heck, if they're ready to just go fully, leap all the way into it, get everything up and running, and they're capable of doing that, great. The faster they get on console and start seeing those returns and benefits, the better. But this whole concept of, we're going to start you just with this, just try this. Like, you're already a paying customer or you're on your free trial. Just try this, see how this works, kind of send these texts out.
Yeah, and we have had people enter at different points depending on what their needs were. I mean, we have people that started with the timekeeping. They didn't have the scheduling needs, so they're just using the timekeeping with the anticipation of maybe transitioning or using the scheduling feature later, or so it's
right. Like, so being on the media side of things here, I've interviewed some of the guys out in the field, and I did find it interesting. There's a small outfit out in Utah, 18 to 30 guys. I don't know, would you classify that kind of medium size for a contracting company, but they were just using that scheduling portion, and it transformed their company. So, I mean, that speaks volumes to using just one of these features, and if that works for you, great, we're making a difference. So, yeah, consoles, I mean, what is a console? It's a cluster of gauges, and by all means, rely on one or the other, but these features are there for you at any time you're ready to make that leap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something that we've put a lot of work into, is like, we want to provide value with whatever feature that we put on there, standalone or together. So
different companies have different needs.
Yep.
So, Bill, let's say a company is listening to this, or a guy who has a vision for a company or already owns a company. Maybe you're even just working for a company and you want to propose this to leadership over there. Where do you go to get started on this journey, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, so first off, everyone starts at a website. So check us out at www.crewconsole.com, right? And then from there, please just go and connect with us. You can contact us right through the website. We're actually going to put you in touch with a real human being, one of our account managers whose background, again, is from the construction industry. Will talk to you about your specific application. You can talk to them about, hey, I struggle with this, or I'd like to do this. And we really, really, really put a lot of work into working with clients, and we put a lot of videos together that's specific to your application. Say, hey, okay, here's how you can use Console. I'm going to send you this video. Check it out. Really watch it with all the people that are with you. And then don't do the free trial until you see what you need to see in that video. And then after that, it's you've got a good relationship with our account manager, and you're off to the races. Try the 30-day trial. We'll make sure you get dialed in.
Yeah, you can just request a demo right on the website. Select a date, select a time, and we'll reach out to you.
Okay, well, that wraps this up. This episode of the Black Lab Apps podcast is talking about Console and the kind of the story behind it and the different ways that it can be utilized to maximize your company's efficiency and bottom line, which is all of our goals, right? Thank you, Bill and Malachi, for joining me to talk about this app today, and we'll see you guys later on the next episode.
Yeah, thanks, Israel.
Thanks, Israel. See ya.